Okay, I think we're good to go. I see that we have a whole bunch of people on the call today. Again, my name's Helmick-Lyon. I am one of the nonprofit coordinators along with my partner in crime, Melissa Lorber, and we're here to talk to you today about the fall grant cycle and go through a nonprofit workshop. So this is always fun. This is our agenda for today. And before we get started, I wanted to maybe talk about a couple housekeeping things. It's been an interesting year and a half, and we've gone through a lot of changes. And I believe we've grown with the changes. So there might be some new information in the presentation today. So even if you're a veteran, pay close attention. But we'll also be posting a recording of this workshop and the PowerPoint from the workshop. And again, you can always email us at grants@impactaustin.org with questions. And I'll give that email or that address out a couple times during the workshop today to make sure you guys are comfortable with it. Please use the Q&A feature to ask questions. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the workshop, so we hope to cover everything there, but feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and again, we'll collect them at the end. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to our fearless leader, Christina Gorczynski, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about Impact Austin.
Thank you so much, Anne, and welcome to everyone again. I'm Christina Gorczynski. I am the Executive Director of Impact Austin, which you know because you are here, that Impact Austin is a women's collective giving organization based in Central Texas, and I am again thrilled to welcome you. And I also want to thank you and thank each and every one of you for the critical role that you play in making Central Texas a better place to live for all people. The nonprofit community helps our community thrive, and each one of you I know has been working overtime over the last 18 months to shift your programming, and we're just grateful that you made the time to be here with us today, and we hope that you make the time to apply for one of our grants. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of Impact Austin and just show you a little bit more about who we are in our numbers so you can get the full understanding of our organization's scope. So as a women's collective giving organization, each one of our members pools $1,250 into our organization, $1,000 of which goes directly to Impact Austin's grant pool, which then goes directly back out into the community in the form of our high impact grants. 250 is retained to support our programming and also our organization's operations. So when I point out this incredible milestone, this incredible accomplishment of $7.64 million going out in grants, just know and think for a minute that these dollars were collected $1,000 at a time from each one of our members over the years. So while it's a big number here, it's been something that we've been working on for 18 years. Impact Austin has awarded 99 grants. 99 grants serving 81 organizations, and both through our main Impact Austin programming and also our Girls Giving Grants program, we've engaged 2,747 women in our organization. So that's who we have been over the years. And I wanted to talk a little bit with y'all today about how this last 18 months, the pandemic, the winter storm, all the things that were completely unpredicted and uncertain has impacted our organization, and how we've used this time to rethink the way that we do things. And I'll describe it for those who remember playing with this as a kid as picking up an Etch-a-Sketch, if you remember that. And we've really shaken the Etch-a-Sketch and then redrawn the organization that we want to be. So over the last year, we have doubled the number of grants that we've awarded. So before this year, we awarded between 4 and 5 grants annually. We've increased that to 8 grants. And based on feedback from each one of you, probably, we've also streamlined our grants process. So we went from doing 5 to 21 questions on each individual application to now having a common application that has 6 questions. Also noteworthy during this year is that we've really made the decision and have taken action on engaging the broader community, that we as Impact Austin members and as a team have really over the years focused so much of our programming internally on working with our members to tap into their capacity to individually make an impact and then collectively make an impact through our funding. But we've really been working to engage the broader community and making all of our programming available to the public and open to the public. So we went from doing 12 in-person events to shifting over to doing 34 virtual events and volunteer educational social opportunities for our members and the whole community. Even seeing those numbers, I hope you know that there has been an incredible team that we've been working with that has helped produce all of these events. And most of them are volunteers. So all the women that you are seeing, that you'll be hearing from today are all Impact Austin volunteers. We've got 2 full-time staff members, myself, and also our incredible office manager, Nicole Genovese. And then beyond that, we've got women who donate hundreds of hours, many of them, but thousands of hours collectively to produce programming for our organization and also to doing our grant making. So this is my opportunity to plug and thank and acknowledge our incredible volunteers for everything that they contribute to our organization. And to also let you know that these volunteers, these Impact Austin members, they become champions for you, for our nonprofit community. So through their participation in Impact Austin, through volunteering with Impact Austin and being members, you not only get a grant or you get reviewed for a grant by Impact Austin, but all of our volunteers also become champions for each one of you. So during this last really difficult year, we've worked really hard to maintain our Impact Austin membership. We have recruited and retained 436 members during the last year, many of whom are part of what I'm calling our COVID class. They are brand new members that have come to us during COVID times, during the pandemic, and motivated by what I'm sure many of you feel is this outpouring of support for the community. They were looking for a way to channel their desire to give back to the community. So joined Impact Austin. We've also worked over the last several years as an outcome of our strategic plan to champion a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion, both offering diversity, equity, and inclusion training to all of our members, specifically members who review grants, all go through training before reviewing grants, and also including training at the beginning of each grant review meeting. We've also increased diversity in our membership and our speakers at public events. But I also want to point out and just highlight for this group and call out that with each Impact Austin grant comes a seat at the grant making table through a 2-year membership to Impact Austin. So we are truly incorporating community voice at the table and continuing to find ways to do better and to continue to include as many community voices at the table in our grant making and in our programming. But even just in the last several months, really, we've distributed $243,800 to 6 new Central Texas community partners, and have already, and the number will be announced. But I think for those of you who are considering applying, just to know that we've worked pretty hard on fundraising this year, and I think you'll be happy with how many members we've recruited, and those dollars will be going directly into the grants that you're applying for. So I'm going to do what executive directors do and just give you a quick plug on ways that you can get more involved with Impact Austin. Our organization is open to all women with a desire to give back in the community, and through either volunteering or through membership. So first, I'm going to plug all of the volunteer opportunities with Impact Austin. There's more information about how to volunteer on our website. But we truly value the gift of your time, your talents, and your connections. There's information on our website to get involved. We'd also love for you to, if you're so motivated, we'd love for you to share Impact Austin with friends and colleagues and let them know about how to get involved, how to volunteer. Let other folks in the nonprofit community know that a membership or getting involved with Impact Austin is a great inside view in the grant making process and a great overview of the nonprofit community as a whole. And so, of course, I am also going to invite you to join Impact Austin. With a gift of $1,250, you will become a member of Impact Austin, get access to all of our programming, and be able to sit on a grant review committee and be able to work alongside some of the incredible members that you're going to hear from today. I also want to give just a quick plug because it's foreshadowing. It's a preview of what's to come later from Chelsea Elliott, the executive director of the Helen Foundation. I wanted to give y'all a quick visual of what an Impact Austin grant can do. And Chelsea will tell you a little bit more about the grant, but you'll see Impact Austin has a very special connection with this machine that you see here and what looks like a truck on the outside, but it's actually a very cool mobile clinic that just opened up, the Optical Prime, and you'll see here the ribbon cutting. So I know that y'all are here to learn more about the grant review process. And again, I thank you for being here. I sincerely thank you for everything each one of you are doing in the community. I feel like I am among my people when I'm with other nonprofit professionals, and I'm super grateful for your support. And I'm going to turn it back over to my team.
Hey there. Thanks, Christina. Thanks so much. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to share the rest of our presentation. And again, I kind of wanted to go over our agenda for today. We had a great overview from Christina, and then there's three of us that'll be walking you through the grant process overview. And then special treat at the end is Chelsea Elliott, who Christina just spoke about, and then we'll have a Q&A at the very end with three of our most experienced members. So now let's get to work and make this a workshop. Okay, so as Christina said, streamlined application and review process. When Melissa and I went through training for this, it actually had us do some submittals for a grant, and we found out how streamlined the process has become. So that's a plus this year. Proposals can support existing or expansion of initiatives and by single organizations or collaboratives. So we had several collaboratives last cycle. They need to target a specific population, last for a specific duration, and aim to achieve specific measurable goals. Proposals can also support capacity building, which again is something that's changed since years past. Grant amounts will be based on membership levels and announced at the beginning of each grant cycle, which is July 8th. And Christina alluded to the fact that I think we've done a great job recruiting new members to contribute to that. And then this is also different from a year ago. All finalists are awarded a grant amount and become community partners. The primary award is 80% of the total grant, and the secondary award is 20%. 20% of that primary grant is unrestricted. All of the secondary grant is unrestricted, which gives you a lot of flexibility with our grant dollars. We're really focusing on a broader lens, in equity lens and grant making. That's been a goal of ours, and we're really focused on doing it. And then more information can be found at the website listed here. And again, remember, we're going to post this PowerPoint and a recording at the end, and you'll have access to all this information. So don't run to scrimp or to jot it all down. Okay, an eligible organization must be a public charity, not a private foundation with tax exempt status. That makes pretty much sense. Applicants applying as a collaborative must identify one lead organization to submit the application, and that organization must meet the eligibility guidelines. So that encourages some creative collaborations. We're super excited about how that works. An initiative must provide services in Bastrop, Hayes, Travis, and/or Williamson counties. You must use the funds within 24 months. You have to use the entire grant amount. There's no partials. And again, focus areas, we've split it up into two cycles. So health and well-being and equity for fall 2021, and community and education for spring 2022. I can't even believe we're talking about 2022 already. And the organization must not have received an Impact Austin grant within the timeframes posted on the Impact Austin grant application guidelines. And they're actually pretty easy to find. So you have time, go to our website, travel around a little bit, and I think you'll find things are pretty straightforward. What we will not fund is also pretty straightforward. Debt reduction, endowments or memorials, bridge funding or interim financing, operational deficits, partisan political lobbying or legislative activities, fundraising activities or events. No, we won't pay for your gala. Sports teams or any sports related activity or competition, general capital campaigns, but general construction or renovation unrelated to a specific proposed initiative. If you're building a nursery for your initiative, that's a different story. Fraternal, sectarian, and religious organizations where the grant is intended for the principal benefit of the organization's own members or adherents, or where the grant is intended for inherently religious activities. Legal expenses incurred in any action by or against the organization, and advertising. So again, I mentioned it earlier, but these are the four grants that we are talking about, 2 for this fall and 2 for next spring, but they're very straightforward. This is also posted on our website. It's up to you to determine where you fit in. We don't have fixed guidelines for any of these, but the description pretty much says what we're looking for. And this also is hasn't changed over my length of tenure with Impact Austin. The 5 key criteria used to evaluate needs to be credible. Your organization needs to be reliable and trustworthy. Strong record of achieving its goals, has a solid reputation within the community. Our Impact Austin members, this is their money, this is their investment in your organization, so they're looking for somebody that they understand. The organization needs to be capable. You need to be able to turn your good ideas into reality. You have competent, qualified staff, as well as the structure and systems to achieve. Strong board and prior success, which doesn't mean that we aren't willing to start out with younger organizations, but these are general key criteria. You need to be committed. Your organization considers the initiative to be a priority, to complete the initiative with or without us, have a plan to continue the initiative beyond our grant. How exciting is that? Feasible. Initiative can be done, needs to be doable. Budget supports the outlined tasks and strategies. The time frame seems reasonable. Significant. The initiative should be done. It meets an important need within the community, works to resolve the issue addressed. That's why we're called Impact Austin. We want to help you make an impact. In our grant process, we have 2 types of review committees, and thank goodness I'm on the first and not the second. The first is our grant review committees. They're responsible for implementing the grant process and choosing 2 finalists per focus area. Members complete training on Impact Austin guidelines and grant evaluation, and they get great training and great experience. This is one of the highlights of being an Impact Austin member. And then there's the Grant Finance Committee, and those are our financially astute and wise members who volunteer. They have strong financial experience and skills, and they serve as financial consultants for the grant review. So rest assured that the grant financial documents you submit will be well evaluated and understood by our membership. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Melissa, and she can talk to you a little bit about the grant application process.
Hello, I'm going to take over. I'm Melissa Lorber and Ann's co-chair. If you email us at the email address, we're going to show you a couple of times. It's either going to be Ann or I answering you, and we look forward to working with all of you. So currently, and this is a change from the past as well, there are 3 phases in the grant process, not 4. In the past, we've started with the LOI phase, the letter of interest phase, and we no longer have that. We have 1 grant application from the beginning. Then 3 finalists or semi-finalists are invited to participate in the site visit, and then 2 make it to the presentation and vote. And as Christina mentioned earlier, both of those 2 now get grants. Ann, you want to forward? All right, so the first phase, as I mentioned, is the grant application phase. That is what you all are deciding whether to jump into right now. As we mentioned, our grant application is much shorter than it has been in the past. It asks about 6 topics, which are your organization, the initiative, goals, measurements, and evaluation, funding and sustainability, equity, and collaborators. It's important to note that if you have applied for a grant in the past and have filled out the initial LOI, you were not asked to submit attachments and documents with the LOI, only if you made it onto the later grant phase. Now, since everyone is filling out a grant application at the beginning, everyone is going to have to provide these attachments, and they include things like your organization's financials, your budget for your initiative, an audit if you have one, your Form 990, board and staff information, and collaborator commitments. These documents are going to be discussed later in more detail, but it's important to note that it's going to take longer than you may anticipate to gather and provide us all of this requested information. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the grant application deadlines. Okay, Anne? All right, the second, as I mentioned, what happens, as you've heard today, is committees of volunteers are going to be reviewing all of the applications that come in each focus area, and they're going to review those grants. They're initially going to narrow down the number of applicants who get what's called a deep dive to about 5 to 7. And then from that 5 to 7, they're going to pick 3 organizations, semifinalists, to invite to a site visit. At the site visits, usually it's set up so half of it you're in charge of it, and half of it we're in charge of. This last cycle, we did all of the site visits online, and we're still discussing, haven't made a final decision whether the ones this fall will be in person or online or some combination thereof. But how it usually works is you and your organization control the first part, where you give introductions, give a tour, have people present, do whatever you want to tell us about your organization. And then in the second half, we do a panel interview where we members on the committees ask questions of your executive director, your project or program director, a board member, and a financial representative. After those site visits, the grant review committee will narrow down the 3 semifinalists to the 2 finalists, who will be the ones who are up for the grants at our town hall in fall 2021. Go ahead. All right, so, and this is a little bit different in the past. As we mentioned, until the spring cycle, we had 1 annual meeting where we gave all of our grants, or most of our grants for the year, at the annual meeting, and we split it into 2 cycles. So we just awarded the spring grants at our annual meeting, and the fall grants will be awarded at our town hall, which will be on November 16th, 2021. So this whole process, which will start in July, will culminate for the 2 finalists finding out which grants, the 80% of the funding or 20% of the funding they receive, and that will be in November. What happens in between the time that you're announced as the 2 finalists is a very quick turnaround, because up until this point, you have been presenting your case, presenting your organization and your project to a committee of about 30 volunteers. Now that you're a finalist, you and your co-finalists are going to be presented to the entire Impact Austin membership, which is around 400 women, give or take. And so you will be asked to do a 1-page cover letter. The committee will do a 1-page finalist report, and you will present your initiative budget. And this information will be provided in advance to all of the members. You will also be asked to do a 5-minute presentation. If we are meeting in person at that time, the 5-minute presentation will be in person at the town hall. If we do it like we did this last time, or actually these last 2 times, we had videos recorded and posted online for our members to review in advance. Either way, the town hall is when we announce the winners. Both finalists are going to be winners, but you'll find out whether you get the 80% or the 20%. All right. Yeah. All right, here are some key dates. And like Anne mentioned earlier, don't feel you have to memorize or write any of these down. All of this information is on our website. and this entire presentation and video of this presentation will be posted on the website shortly. But important dates are the grants applications open up on July 8th, and the grant applications close at 5 p.m. on August 3rd. During that time, if you have any problems with anything, we are going to give you an email address, and we're glad to help you with everything. After August the 3rd, Ann and I's role is basically over, and you will be turned over to whichever grant review committee that you were applying for. The initial grant decisions, where each committee narrows it down to about 6, will be announced on September 2nd. The semifinalists, those 3 that are going to go to site visits, are announced on September 23rd. Site visits will be on October 7th through 9th. And then the finalist decisions, who are the 2 finalists, will be October 21st. You'll have training the very next day. And then by early November, all those finalist materials I just mentioned are distributed to the members. And then November 16th is when this process ends. The grant money will actually be distributed on December 1st. All right, the fun stuff. If you've applied in the past, before the last couple of years, we used to have a different and much harder to deal with grant system. The new one is much better, but still not perfect. And like I said, Ann and I are here to help you with any questions that you have. So how do you get started? If you go to the website, and it's impactaustin.org/grant making, everything that we're telling you and more is on that website. Make that website your friend. Look for this box that I have here on the screen, and there's a blue button that says Open Grants Management System. And that is where you're going to click to get started. And please get started as soon as possible after grants open on July 8th, and make sure you can get in. As I'm going to talk about in a minute, make sure you know the right email and the right password, and you can get in and know how to use the system, because probably the hardest part of this is not doing the grant, but getting all the information to us through the grant management system. So please start early, and please do not mind, ask us any questions. We really want to help you. All right. So this is a tricky part, to pay attention to this, and we tried to make it as clear as possible on the website. But when you go to log in, you're going to see 2 options. One says sign in, and one says need an account. Here's the tricky part. If your organization, not you personally, but your organization has ever applied for an Impact Austin grant, your organization already has a profile in our grant system. And you're going to need to sign in using the sign in function, because if you go to the need account, you're going to be creating a duplicate profile for your organization. And so we get it. People in nonprofits change, emails are no longer used. We don't know who did this last time. We are there to help you with that. If your organization has ever applied for an Impact Austin grant and you don't currently know what email is associated with it, please send us an email, and probably that same day, we can change the email associated with the account to whatever email address you want. And then you'll have the option we can either tell you what it currently is, or we can change it for you to your address. And then you'll have the option to change the password and log right into the profile. If you truly are new, your organization is a new organization, or it is an organization that is completely new to Impact Austin and has never applied for an Impact Austin grant, then you are going to use the second option, which says need an account. So there you go. If you have any questions, if you don't, you're new to the organization and you don't know if they've ever applied before, please, we check the email address several times a day, and we can answer that question quickly for you. All right, Ann. All right, a couple of lessons learned. So like I said, we made some changes on the last cycle. We made some changes during, the year before, when everything had to quickly move online because of COVID. And then when we made changes last cycle, and there's a few things that we've learned. The first one I mentioned earlier is it's going to take you longer to gather and upload all the requested documents than you think it's going to. So please plan in advance for that, and communicate with us if there's any questions or if you're having any problems, and we're glad to help. If you did apply for a grant in one of the other 2 focus areas this last cycle. We have changed the application a little bit. The categories and questions are all still the same, but the word limits are shortened. If, despite going back and reviewing that last slide about whether to log in or sign up for a new profile, if this is confusing to you and you accidentally mess it up, we understand. The system will not let you, if you go create a new account and you try to start an application for your organization with a new account, it's going to ask for your organization's EIN. And if you try to save, when your agency already has another profile, it's going to tell you, you cannot save this. This is a duplicate EIN. Please stop at that point and email us. We can fix this problem for you. But don't try to proceed. We've seen people change the EIN or change things to try to save a duplicate profile, which is just going to cause more problems later on for you. Or, you know, if you stop right away, we can fix it for you and help you get to you have just one current profile. This was mentioned earlier as well by Christina, I believe. And this is as part of both of the finalists who become Impact Austin community partners are given a full membership to Impact Austin. And that means if you are awarded a grant in November and get your money in December, that next year in 2022, you have a membership. You are asked as part of that membership to participate on a committee, either on a grant review committee, on the grant finance committee, on our diversity committee or marketing, whatever you're interested in, but to help be a part of our organization and help us learn and grow. The grant review committees are a wonderful opportunity, and of course my favorite, because that's what I did. But it's broader than that, but we do ask that you take full advantage, not only as a voting member, but as a participating member. And it's one female representative from your organization. All right, I am now going to turn it over to Margaret Ballinger, who is one of the Grant Finance Committee co-chairs, and she's going to tell you about the hard part.
Thank you, Melissa. I don't know that it's actually that hard, but I know sometimes it seems like it is. Welcome to all of our nonprofits. I hope this will be helpful, and I would encourage you up front that if you have questions, we will talk about this many times. I know Melissa and Ann have both noted we do have a place for you to contact us to get answers to your questions. So let's start with what the financial requirements are. I'm going to go through the specifics on the next slide or two, but to start with, I want you to be aware that we need all of your financials submitted by the due date, and as Melissa talked about, that is when you turn in your first application. Late submissions will not be accepted. And I encourage you to double check your submission to make sure all the required documents are included, because missing required documents could disqualify the nonprofit for this cycle. Now, I do want to be aware there are many of you that may, for example, not have certain documents. They aren't applicable to you. For example, you don't have collaborators or litigation. And that's a good thing if you don't have litigation. A little joke for you there, for our lawyers on the call. An audit, you may not have an audit. So you just need to upload a note stating that you do not have the data if it's not applicable, but you need to upload something, okay? The key areas to review prior to submission, please be sure on your initiative budget that the revenue less expenses should equal 0, both for the Impact Austin funding and other funding. FTEs associated with this initiative should be included on the initiative budget. In-kind revenue should equal in-kind expenses. And most importantly, in many ways, is if you have something unusual, please explain the key points in your financial narrative, as that really helps us. So we are not in your organization, and so we're not necessarily as familiar with your organization or your financials as you are. So this gives us additional information that we can use as we evaluate it. And as I said in the beginning, if you have questions, please contact the email address on the screen, which will be provided in other places at grants@impactaustin.org. We are happy to help you answer your questions. Okay, now we're going to talk about the required financial documents just as a review. So one of the most important ones, of course, is your initiative budget. If the initiative is for more than just the funding from Impact Austin, please use the other funds column to detail that funding. Your organizational financials are very important. These should be things that I think you generally have available. We want to see your current year budget and with year-to-date actuals or whatever is the most recent period. Statement of activities, otherwise known as an income and expenses for the most recently completed fiscal year, and the statement of financial position, otherwise known as a balance sheet for the most recently completed fiscal year. We would like to, your narrative, financial narrative should be included. An audit if you have one. If not, as noted before, please just feel free to go ahead and upload something that says you have not had an audit. Your most recently filed Form 990. Your funding sources. So this is something that lists the different places you get your money from. It doesn't have to go into every funding or every funder. You can even categorize them into things like governmental agencies, foundations, corporations, etc. And we would like to see that for the current year and most recently completed fiscal year, side by side if possible. Your board information. So this is really a listing of your board members, including any affiliations, and summary of board demographics. Same thing for your staff, the current organization chart showing names and positions and a brief resume of key staff, including qualifications relative to this specific initiative, and a summary of the demographics. We do require that you have a certificate of insurance, so that needs to be uploaded. And then any litigation. This is actual or threatened litigation or regulatory proceedings, investigations, governmental actions involved with your organization in the last 2 years, with a brief description of each. I will note, I got asked this one other time, will that disqualify you? Not necessarily, we just want to know about it so we can evaluate it. And then collaborators. So some of our nonprofits are collaborating with other organizations, so we want to see the letters of commitment from these other organizations. And I believe at this point, we will turn it back over to our nonprofit coordinators, who are wonderful, to talk about the Girls Giving Grants.
Hi there, I'm back again, starting to think about dinner. But anyways, one of the neatest components of Impact Austin is G3, Girls Giving Grants. I have a 28-year-old daughter, and I wish so much that I had been an Impact Austin member and had an opportunity to introduce her to Girls Giving Grants. But G3 is the youth version of Impact Austin. Each girl between 8th and 12th graders gets $125 of her own money, with $100 of that amount allocated for the community. And just like modeling what we do in Growing Up Impact Austin, girls are trained on many topics, including community needs and how to assess grants. I mean, that's a wonderfully rich way to start your teenage years. Since 2006, G3 has awarded $98,000 in grant awards, which is amazing, given the way my daughter went through what little money she had. Oh, I wish. For the 2021 grant cycle, G3 has 76 members, bringing the fall grant amount to $7,600. Registration for the class of 21 to 22 begins in the fall. And just like Grown Up Impact Austin, grants must support youth programs in Travis, Hayes, Williamson, and/or Bastrop counties. Nonprofits might apply for this grant in addition to and separately from Impact Austin grant process. They're not codependent on each other. And the G3 grant process is very similar to the Impact Austin process. So again, impact applications for the G3 cycle will be accepted starting October 1st and due by November 5th, 2021 for the next year's cycle. The recipient of the G3 grant will be selected in April 2022. In this case, if you're looking for more information, you'll want to go to the address at the bottom of the image, g3@impactaustin.org. And now, like my favorite part, which is listening to one of our community partners speak. Chelsea Elliott is the executive director of Helen Foundation, and I have to add a personal note. As grant co-chair when Helen went through our grant review process, so I got to know Chelsea from the very beginning, and I think you'll find that her partnership with us has been rewarding, not just for Chelsea, but for all of our Impact Austin members. So with that, Chelsea, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, hello, and thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today talking on behalf as a community partner and as an Impact Austin member. Before I begin, I should probably preface this with the fact Helen was a pre-COVID community partner, which we were the 2019 Health and Wellbeing Grant recipient. And given all of the changes to the actual application itself, I might just skip forward and talk about the site review and the actual town hall, which we held in person at that time, because I feel like those are two very important activities that everyone on the call today should take seriously when you start the application process for Impact Austin. So before I begin, I'll just describe Helen is a nonprofit here in town that exists to help children and families see the world clearly. I founded the organization 8 years ago, and we provide vision screenings, eye exams, and prescription glasses to underprivileged children and families throughout actually Central Texas. And as you all saw earlier, we launched our very first mobile eye clinic in the form of a 32-foot tiny house on wheels. So I'll dive into that in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about the site visit. Anne made a phenomenal point earlier when it comes to the emphasis that the GRCs place on the site visit and understanding the organization and financials, because these women are stewards of the Impact Austin membership contribution. And so I was definitely prepared for the 12 committee members that came to our office, and I was impressed at how thoroughly each of those women fully understood our application and our financials. And so I would highly recommend that if you are selected as a semifinalist for a site visit, be prepared that those women will walk in fully versed on your application and with questions to better understand any or for any clarification from your application. They come to the table 100% prepared. So I highly recommend you do so. And once we got the call from Anne that we had advanced from a semifinalist to a finalist, it was all about preparing for pitch night, which is an energy unlike anything I've ever experienced. And I've had the pleasure of talking to a lot of audiences. In 2019, they held the annual meeting in person, and we had the opportunity to set up a table and talk about our work prior to, and it was 300 to 350 of extremely educated, inquisitive, curious women who came to learn about the work that we did. And they had all 8 of us finalists in a holding room preparing for the pitch. And we actually celebrated each other because it's a huge accomplishment to make it to that room with the other semifinalists. And we applauded each other as they came and called us out one by one. We just celebrated and cheered each other on. And I was terrified because I was the last to pitch that night, and we were competing against a mobile veterinary service. I was like, puppies, I don't know what I could do to be on here, but it was just an honor to even receive that recognition. And then I remember getting Anne's call as I was driving home that night with a celebratory call that we had been awarded the Health and Wellbeing Grant. So definitely prepare for the site visit and the pitch. They give you 5 minutes to tell who you are, what you do, and how you'll make an impact. And as long as you can do that concisely, that's what they're looking for. I also wanted to talk about how our Health and Wellbeing Grant has impacted Helen. For those of y'all who are unfamiliar with Impact Austin, the organization, winning a grant from Impact Austin is a notoriously challenging feat. My fellow nonprofit leaders had actually shared stories about how they'd applied over numerous cycles to no avail. So I applied just with a great deal of apprehension. And what we did is we asked Impact Austin for funds to purchase equipment to make prescription glasses. I had an idea. Austin at the time did not have a mobile eye clinic, and there were children who were facing greater and greater barriers to seeking a basic eye exam and a pair of glasses. And I realized that problem doesn't need to exist, and it's something that the community could come together and make possible. And so our Impact Austin grant allowed us to do that. And what I think community members fail to realize is the amount of credibility and the reputation that Impact Austin's investment in an organization brings to a group like, especially like Helen, being as young and as small as we were, that we were able to leverage our health and well-being grant into additional funding that allowed us to kickstart our pop-up mobile eye clinic, in which we took all of the equipment and the staff into a school and delivered care while we raised funds to build our own facility, our own mobile eye clinic structure. And that funding, our grant actually allowed us to deliver services in the 1920 school year and during the 2021. So we worked with Impact Austin to continue delivering care amid COVID. And we always make sure that our school partners and our prospective funders know that Helen would not be where we are today with our very own and Austin's only mobile eye clinic without Impact Austin. And so that's why the Impact Austin logo is on the back of our clinic, Optical Prime. Christina also touched on the benefits of being a community partner, one of which is we get to be members. So my very first year, I joined the grant review committee. I wanted to see the role that Anne and my liaison, Colleen, played in the grant review process, and I got to serve on the education GRC, and it's phenomenal. These women bring all different perspectives to the table, and nonprofit leaders, they could really use us. It's one thing to look at nonprofits from the outside. It's another to be part of the day-to-day and be able to explain and communicate some of the expenses that we present on our financials. So if you're on the nonprofit, membership's a great opportunity for us to communicate what our day-to-day is like. But there are actually countless ways to get involved. Christina and Nicole can easily do an entire webinar on all the different ways to engage with Impact Austin. In addition to serving on the education GRC, I also joined membership because I can't say enough how important or how valuable an Impact Austin investment is to a nonprofit's credibility in the community, especially when it comes to communicating to larger funders. And if you're a small entity, Impact Austin can change your world. It certainly did ours. We wouldn't be here. Helen wouldn't be where we are today with its own very brand new mobile eye clinic. I worked on this for 3 years, and it's a dream come true, and it would not have happened without Impact Austin making that investment. So I can't talk about it enough, which is why the membership committee was a great chance for me to articulate the value that Impact Austin plays in nonprofit communities, to nonprofit organizations. So if you are curious about membership, I recommend calling or emailing Christina and Nicole. They can tell you the elaborate list of ways to get involved. And if there are any questions, I'll be sticking around for Q&A, but at this time, I believe I'll hand it back over to Anne.
So hopefully you can see my screen again. And now we're going to go over to our Q&A, and I'm going to turn this over to Melissa, who's going to moderate, and I'm just going to sit here and look intelligent while we talk with some really important members and Chelsea and answer some of the questions that you've asked. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Melissa.
Great. So it looks like we've gotten 8 questions, most of which have also been answered already, and we will be posting the questions and answers as well online, but please keep asking your questions. We're going to start by going over some of them that have been asked, just so everybody can hear the answer to them because they apply to a lot of people. The first one, and I'm going to direct this to Marla, who's our grants co-chair. Marla, is there a preference for whether you should apply for a project or program grant or a capacity building grant?
No, we don't have any preference. What we want to do is we want to fund really good initiatives. And so just write your grant application and stress the importance. And I think both will get a good look.
Yeah, as a member of the education GRC, these women will read it. So whatever you can put on your application, they will read it.
So, and this one might be for Margaret or it might be for Marla, but how is the grant amount determined and when will we know how much the grants are for?
So Margaret, do you want me to handle?
Yeah, I'll let you answer. You already answered on the chat.
Okay. So we used to make the grant amount based on how many members we had at the end of the year, so December 31st. And so it was set for the entire year. But last year we went to really a year-round model. So anyone can join Impact Austin at any time, and they can set up monthly payments. So we really can't stick a staff in the earth to say, okay, this is based on this date. So what we've done is we've set 2 dates during the year. So January 1st, the finance group gets together and they determine the grant amounts, or the total amount available for the spring grants. And then for the fall grants, that amount is set today actually, but we won't announce it until we open for grants on the 8th of July. I hope that answers your question.
And that will be posted on our website, as well as will be sent to everyone in an email as well. We'll keep reminding you when grants are going to open, and we'll announce that on email.
And the other thing is that on the budget, that in your grant amount or in your grant application, the initiative budget will have that amount in there, hard coded, so you'll know how much it is.
So one question that we haven't gotten an answer to yet is, does the organization need to be female led, or need to have a female member of the organization?
I guess I'll try that one too. No, you don't have to be led by a female. You don't have to have any females in your organization if you have a good plan. I think where you might miss out is because you need to have females in your organization, because it would make it more balanced. And also, we do require that if you take on your membership, if you're a new community partner and you want to be a member of Impact Austin, we do require you to be female, or at least identify as a female, sorry.
If you are a member, if someone is a member of Impact Austin, can the organization that they're affiliated with still apply for an Impact Austin grant?
Yes. So what we would do is they would not be involved in any of the decision making. Just like Chelsea said, now she's a member, so she could apply again, or her organization could apply. But we would make sure we do a lot of conflict of interest screening on our grant review committees, so we don't allow people that are associated with nonprofits that are applying for that focus area to participate on that grant review committee.
All right, Margaret, I've been saving one up for you.
Thanks,
can
Melissa.
you clarify what project revenues you want in the financials? If a project does not generate revenues, do you mean donations and grants as revenues?
Yes, that qualifies as revenue, so yes.
Are there other types or examples?
Yeah, there can be many different types of, it doesn't necessarily just have to be. So it's not revenue in the for-profit, meaning where you sold something. So it's grants from foundations, municipalities, et cetera, also qualify, not to mention governmental grants, et cetera. Donations from churches, businesses, et cetera. Does that answer? Hopefully that answers the question.
I think so. If whoever asked that question has a follow-up question, feel free to email us and we can help you individually as well. Let me see. If an organization is located in Travis County but provides services in the 4 counties but also outside of the 4 counties, how does that impact their ability to apply for a grant?
I think that one's for me too.
Okay.
So our requirement is that you provide services in those 5 counties, but you can provide services in other counties too. There should be no impact.
Hey, Melissa, I'm going to ask a question that I know a lot of people have asked in the past that I haven't seen submitted yet.
Great.
And that question is, how do I know what focus group my grant should be in? Can I email grants@impactaustin.org and you tell me which focus group I should be applying to?
I thought you were going to answer your own question, Ann.
Oh, would you like me to? So,
Marla, do you want to take that one too, or Margaret? I don't care who answers.
No, I'll let you answer it.
Go ahead, Ann.
so it's up to you where you want to apply, what focus area you think is most appropriate. That a suggestion we oftentimes make is go back and look at past recipients of grants to get an idea of what kinds of initiatives fit in which focus area, and that might be helpful to you.
I also recommend from the nonprofit side, don't try to make your case that you belong in both. Be very clear about which one you want you're applying for and stick to it in the narrative. Because I've served on a GRC where a nonprofit has submitted an LOI that could be either, and it's confusing. If you don't know which one you're applying for, it's not fair to ask Impact Austin to choose.
Yeah, if you, for example, if you apply for the equity grant, your application is going to the committee that is only reviewing the equity grants, and they're going to be weighing your grant against the other equity grants. If you're in health and well-being, the same thing. And so keep in mind that the focus that you pick is the focus that's going to be compared in picking the finalists from that committee. And some people, we had two different focus areas last cycle. If you applied then and did not receive a grant, you can apply again if you think you fit in one of the two current focus areas. The only limitation is you can't apply again if you've received Impact Austin funding during a certain period of time that is spelled out on the website. All right, we are at 5:30. Why doesn't everybody give? I think we've answered all of the questions. If we haven't, I have one more for Margaret, but we'll follow up with anybody. We have your emails from your registration, and we'll follow up with anybody whose questions didn't get answered. But why doesn't Marla and Margaret and Chelsea just give one final piece of advice or one answer to a question you think people are thinking but haven't asked?
Chelsea, go ahead.
Oh, common question. Should I do it? Yes. I don't know if I'm prepared. I'm like, just do it. Impact Austin will vet thoroughly. They will tell you, but they can't do anything if you don't apply.
Very good advice, Chelsea. From a financial perspective, I mean, I think the question that hasn't been asked might be, if you, the answer I would give you is if you have questions, send us an email. So if you're unsure about something, go ahead and ask. I'll put it that way. More of a general answer than a specific.
All right. Last but not least, our fearless leader, Marla.
So I think answer the question that we ask. We have 6 questions, and you don't need to repeat things. Answer the question that's asked, because that's really the first thing we look at. We ask a question, did you answer it? And then we move on. So I think that's important. And I wish you all good luck. We're excited about this new fall grant cycle. This is the first time we've done it. We had our social innovation grant, but now we're moving 2 grants to the fall. So we're excited to see how this works out for us and for you.
So my last tip, I have 2. One is just remember your audience. Remember that you're convincing women who have made their own financial contribution that you are one of the 2 best ideas for this year, right? Organization plus idea. And so remember that audience when you're applying. And the second thing, if Ann wants to put the slide up, I'm going to give you my best tip of the day.
Hey, hold on. It's a lot of pressure,
My best tip of the day is everything you need to know is on the website. And Ann and I don't know everything, but we'll try our best to answer any questions that you have. And the very last slide has both of those things, the website and our email address. And so please use both of those as much as you need to. We're checking it now. We'll be checking it even more often after grants open on July 8th. And thank you all, and we will hear from you soon. Anne, you have a last tip?
Just thanks to everybody for your time tonight, and thanks for everybody who volunteered to help tonight. Chelsea, especially for you, and Margaret and Marla, and Christina and Nicole. Again, it's a pleasure. Best to you all. And now it's the end of our nonprofit workshop. We'll have this posted by tomorrow, I would think. Yes?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys. Have a good evening.
Bye, everyone.
Good evening to all.